This is Goku-san DBZ, and welcome to a new best to worst list. Now, I will be starting, in my opinion, the weakest to the best of this, and this time it's going to be a list, another music best to worst list of albums, and from a suggestion made on my best to worst video of Disturb albums, I was asked and suggested the idea to do a best to worst list of Megadeth. So, with that said, here is, in my opinion, the weakest to strongest albums. And I will suggest at least one or two songs from the album to check out, specifically. It stand out to me. Coming in at number 15 is their 11th studio album. It was released in 2007, called United Abominations. And personally, I think this album is definitely one of their weaker albums. Out of their 15 albums so far, studio albums, which is pretty impressive to say the least. But yeah, in my personal opinion, it's by far the weakest. About the only song on this album that actually stands out to me is a song interestingly named Gears of War. And no, it has nothing to do with the video game franchise. Coming in number 14, this album was released in 1985. It was their first album. It was called Killing Is My Business, and Business is Good. And my favorite song off the album is Rattlehead. Still, like the last one, very weak in my personal opinion. There are some of those that only swear by their early work. Now, me personally, I'm not so much like that because I actually rather enjoy a lot of their newer work. And with that said, number 13 on this list was released in 1999. A lot of people, this is probably their least favorite album, but it's number 13 to me of the 15. And that being, of course, the album called Risk. And the main song that stands out to me, obviously, because of being enjoying back in the Attitude Era, of course, things like WCW, and this song was actually a theme for a short time of Goldberg. And my list just fell. So, with that said, coming in at, and the main song I like from it is called Crushing. Coming in number 12 is their 1988 album, So Far, So Good, So What. To me, the main album, this was their third studio album, and the main song that caught my attention was Set the World Afire. And you'll have to forgive me for drinking water because I've been having a cough issue the last several days. With that said, coming in my opinion, at number 11 is their 1997 album called Cryptic Writings. Interesting album, but really still the only song that really stands out to me of this album, though there may be another song here and there I actually enjoyed, but the main song that stands out to me from this album was the song Almost Honest, which I personally prefer the remix of that song on the Mortal Kombat Annihilation soundtrack. Even if you're somebody who absolutely hates the movie, you can't deny the soundtrack to Annihilation was amazing, especially for those of you like myself who actually enjoy industrial metal. And this remix gave it a little bit more of an industrial feel rather than your traditional thrash sound of course, Megadeth. Of course, obviously being one of the big four. Coming in at number 10 is, this album was their 6th studio album. It was released in 1994, and it was called Euthanasia. The main song off this album for me personally that really stands out is a song called Reckoning Day. It's actually a very solid, very good single from the band, hands down. And maybe that's one of the few reasons that specific songs like this are why this album is more towards the middle. Coming at number 9 is an album, there's a lot of people who don't like it, but I personally enjoyed for the most part. For me, there's really probably 3 or 4 songs off this album I thoroughly enjoyed, but one specific song that stands out to me above all others off this album. Coming at number 9 is their 2013 album, their 14th studio album, and that is Super Collider. And the specific number 1 song that originally got me to buy the album in the first place was a song called Dance in the Rain. Very good, very harkens back to the older school Megadeth of like the late 80s into like the early 90s to me. I just love the style of the song. And by the way, there's some back voice in that song that actually is done by David Draymond of, you guessed it, Disturbed, interestingly enough. So a fun fact. Coming in at number 8. This album was released in 2001. It is also their 9th studio album. The song is called the album is called The World Needs a Hero. And to be fair, kind of true, really, if you think about it. The main song that stands out to me from this album is the song 1000 Times Goodbye. But there are about 4 tracks off the album I really enjoyed for the most part. Coming at number 7, here's when we start getting to albums that I've listened to probably and enjoy at least 5+ tracks off of. Coming at number 7 is their 2011 album, their 13th studio album. And the album is called 13, and this number 1 favorite song for me off the album is called 13. Though the album itself is spelled 13 in the word, and then, of course the song is just the number 13. Sort of like the actual number of the album. This was definitely one of their more recent albums that definitely overall solid and very well executed album. For the most part, it's a very well-rounded album to me personally. Coming in at number 6. This album is their 10th studio album, released in 2004. This is one of the albums, and I only started really getting into just Megadeth back in probably the mid-2000s, in all honesty. And this was the second album I ever bought of Megadeth. This was one of the first 3 albums that really got me into the band, though it still only comes in at number 6. That is their 2004 album, 10th studio album, the album called The System Has Failed. And the number 1 song that really stands out to me off of this album, it's very well written, very well executed, very good, and as always, great riffs, very well done, good vocals from also Dave Mustaine. And that is one specific song called Back in the Day. That was such a good song, and in my opinion, is easily probably my top 10 favorite songs from Megadeth ever. Back in the day, because I really enjoyed that song specifically. That was the song that got me to buy the album in the first place. Coming in at number 5. Now we're in the Fave 5. This is their 2nd studio album and was released in 1986. And this is definitely a legendary album in the metal community. And if you don't have this in your Fave 5 and you consider yourself like a fan of Megadeth or a fan of like old school thrash and power metal, I would have to question things. And coming in number 5 is their album called Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? Question mark. So, and number And the song that specifically really, though obviously like a lot of people who like the album, probably favorite song is like mine, which is the song Peace Sells. It's very well written, very well executed, and the lyric writing is very top notch. That's the thing. When it comes to me with a lot of artists and stuff, the reason why I'm probably 90% everything I listen to nowadays is rock or metal, is because a lot of the artists I listen to put a lot of time and effort into their lyric content and lyrical writing. And I love political songs. That's one of the reasons I'm such a big fan of thrash power metal, as well as in general a fan of metal in general, or rock. Because I appreciate songs with very clear messages, and that's one thing you can say about Dave Mustaine with his music. Coming in at number 4, this was only the third album I ever bought of the band. Of their albums of the 2000s, I would have to say this is easily my second favorite album since 2000. Coming in at number 4 is the album Endgame. And the specific song that really stands out to me from this album is the song Endgame, because there is a very strong, hidden, and heavy political message in this specific album. And this song, because it talks about if you don't have the RFID chip, then you're just an illegal alien. Welcome to the New World Order. And really strong, heavy political message, and that's one of the things that stands out to me and why I'm a big fan of Megadeth. And why Megadeth is, in my opinion, easily one of the top 10 greatest metal bands that has ever existed. As well as my personal number 1 favorite of the Big Four. Coming in at number 3 is, I consider Endgame the best of the 2000s. This album I consider the best of the 2010s. This album was released in 2016. It was their 15th studio album. The 2 songs that specifically stand out to me are, though I probably like at least 7 tracks off this album. Out of like a 12 or 13 track album, liking at least 7 of the tracks, that's not bad. You can't say that about a lot of bands. And it is impressive. And they add a little bit more of a mechanical sound. And Dave Mustaine's voice has changed a little, but given his age to be fair, but he still nevertheless is just as good as ever with the riffs. But I like the evolution in sound in this album. Of course, at number 3 is their album Dystopia. And I will say, all around of Dystopia named albums, I think all around this is a better, well-rounded album than the album Dystopia from another one of my favorite bands, Iced Earth. Though I still think Plagues of Babylon. Oh wait, no, I'm thinking of the wrong album, yeah. Dystopia, yeah, I like a few. But for me, yeah, this album is way better overall, material-wise. Coming in at number 2 was, I think, the 4th album I ever bought from the band. And it is obviously my number 2 favorite album. This is from their 1990 album, which had a lot of heavy aiming political message towards, at that time, it was President Herbert Walker Bush. And also really tough songs about how we allow wars to be started over in the name of religion, which is really good, the overall political message in the album. At number 2 is Rust in Peace. And the specific things that stand out to me are the songs Holy Wars and Hangar 18, which are really good. I mean, seriously, Hangar 18 is, I think, one of the maybe bit more underrated of their reasonably well-known songs. But, seriously, the freaking riff and guitar work on Holy Wars is maybe the best track from the band overall. At least I think on guitar work it's their best. Coming in number 1, this was the very first album I ever bought of the band, and I'm sure many people, of course, highly regard this album, but it deserves to be regarded so highly. Coming in at number 1 is their 5th studio album, released in 1992, and is the album Countdown to Extinction. And, in my personal opinion, easily their best album and best work. Some people would regard probably Peace Sells or Rest in Peace. But for me, it's Countdown to Extinction. And I will say specifically about this that songs like Countdown to Extinction is probably my favorite song off the album. But other songs like Skin, was it Beneath My Teeth? Also, Captive Honor. Of course, we cannot forget the legendary song Symphony of Destruction, which is most people's favorite. Good song, but still. Countdown to Extinction song, I think, stands out to me more only because they have the environmental message to it. But, as well as it even received a special type of environmental award for that song. And anyways, that is, in my personal opinion, in my order, in my view, the best, or rather worst to best albums from the legendary member of the Big Four, Megadeth and Dave Mustaine. Leave a comment, tell me what your personal favorite album is from the band. What was the album or song that got you into the band? Like myself, it was, of course, Countdown to Extinction album. But I'm curious to hear what album it was that got other people into it. What do you feel is the overall most solid album, overall track-wise? And many other things, as well as how would you rank the Big Four? I'm curious to hear these things. Let me know if you'd ever like me to do a ranking list of best to worst on Metallica. I'll see you all next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel. And I'm debating whether or not to also work on a best to worst list. I'd love to hear your opinion. If you'd be interested in a best to worst list of Ozzy Osbourne albums. But I'll see you then.